we have now participants still only 12, and it's 6:32. Should we start?
You can start with the announcements.
Yeah, okay. Well, just very quickly, an obvious massive thank you to Joe for initiating this whole thing and for now once again being available to help us out. Oh, you know, honestly, he is amazing. The second thing I'd like to say is welcome to Michael and Toy Skillen as they're going to participate. They're sharing the junior judging. They've just completed the judging course. And of course, you know what we are like. We rope you in as quickly as we can. So welcome to the hot seat. They have already prejudged the images. Along with Henry and myself. They're not going to be commenting tonight because I think you're somewhere in the bush, aren't you, Mike? Far away. So thank you, Mike and Toy. We appreciate the fact that you're willing to start judging. And for the rest of you, I'm so glad those of you who could make it tonight. And we've got Ian, who's going to be sharing the judging with Henry and me in the senior section. And Ian will, and Henry and I will take turns to comment on the senior section. So get yourself ready, Ian, and Henry and I will comment on the junior section. But as always, we're going to try and get it done as quickly as possible, concise as possible, so that we can finish quickly, so that we don't strain our eyes and maybe complete it by 8 o'clock. So, thank you all. Any questions, any comments before we start?
Thank you, Kathy.
Pleasure and welcome.
Okay, are we ready to start with images?
Yep.
Okay.
Laura and Ian have said evening and welcome. So.
No, we haven't started yet.
Did I see my friend Leslie?
Yep. I'm trying to hide.
Hello.
I don't want anybody to see.
Can everyone see that?
Bring a chair and come and sit.
Contemporary artistic.
I've done the dogs.
What have you done?
I put the puppies inside.
Hi, Henry. Is the contemporary artistic slide showing?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
You get it off to see.
I've given them nothing.
No, okay, thank
Okay, the first image is Lady with Umbrella, 5-star silver award.
Kathy?
Okay, I'll begin. Well, I love this image. It's moody, it's evocative. I love this path going. I love the fact that it's virtually monochrome and then you've just got the color. It's just in the umbrella and in the model. So I'll be honest, I gave it a bit of a higher mark because I just love the mood. I love the feeling. But it's one of those images, of course, where I feel that my fellow judges might have thought it wasn't contemporary enough. You see, that's unfortunately what happens in this type of category. But it's still a lovely image. Well done.
Okay, the next category is monochrome, 4-star Luca Tuscany silver award.
It's me.
All right. Ian, you want to
Am I
go?
commenting? Yep, I'll go. Am I here? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
we can.
Right, okay. I enjoy this image. I thought it was quite an interesting perspective and enjoyed the view down into the distance, wondering what might happen down at the end there. However, the balance between the bright and the dark areas, especially up at the top in the sky, I felt was a little bit too excessive, and I would have preferred to have seen the upper section toned down slightly, possibly just dragging a slider from the top to the bottom and lowering the light there a little bit, and I think that would have had a better result, but otherwise a very pleasing image.
4-star Mono Bull, Bronze Award.
All right. Yeah, so, you know, one of the things that when I was judging through, it came to mind is that what Joe said is that in monochrome, contrast favors the brain. So in this case, I think it was maybe slightly overdone. So I think if you can just pull back on the shadows a bit, you can start getting a little bit more detail, not as dark as it is right now. And then maybe just play a bit with the highlights in the background, just soften that a bit. But I think if you can just lift the shadows on the actual Ellie and all that, it will certainly bring out a lot more than you currently see. Right now, it's just very, very dark.
5-star, A Dentist's Nightmare, Silver.
Oh, this is so well captured and so well caught, and how lucky to see this. And of course, missing a number of teeth, so he's either very old or he's been eating very hard things. And similar to what Henry said now, the darks are a little bit too dark here and the background too light. You could really, really bring out a lot of detail in this baboon. There's incredible detail inside this baboon's mouth, which unfortunately we are now missing because it's a little bit underexposed. And I know that's because the background is now virtually very bright, but that's so easy to correct. You can just pull back on the highlights, or, there's a number of things one could do. You could use your brush to tone it down. You could use the radial filter just on the baboon to bring the colors out. Work on this image because it's a fantastic image. It's just, unfortunately, the exposure is wrong.
5-star Giraffe in Damara Land, Silver.
Again, what I'm seeing with the mono tonight is probably something that is going to be said again and again. The balance between the light areas and the dark areas need to be more consistent, and you'll see that later on. There was some stunning images in the mono category, but this again, unfortunately, due to the almost lack of tonal range, it lowers the appeal of the image. Beautiful image nonetheless, but if one were to experiment with it a bit more, like Kathy was saying, that I think would bring out much more detail in it.
5-star High Key Mono Elephant, Silver.
Okay, so I actually like the panoramic, the pano format that this was presented in, and there's a high key image. I think you almost there. I would like to see you maybe pull back on the highlights a little bit. If you do that, you'll start getting the ripples that you see in the water. That will be more pronounced. But even more so, I would like to see a little bit more detail in the skin. And if you just up the contrast a little bit, you'll see that you'll be able to bring a lot more in there and therefore make it a slightly stronger image.
Monochrome, 5-star Naughty Shoe, Silver.
Yes, this is a very interesting image, and I really enjoyed the composition of this image. I love the actual flow of the shoe leading to the underwear and back, and it's quirky and it's interesting. However, you know, in monochrome, one has to be careful if you overdo your contrast, because the whites have been totally outblown in the garment, in the material. So you've got no detail. You've just got these patches of blown out highlights, and it's really such a pity because you could easily bring the detail back in here and make it a much more evocative image.
Van Berens, Master Bronze, Rutter, Mono, Gold Award.
This is one of those images that when I look at, I always wonder, where does one see this kind of thing? I'm always on the lookout for interesting subject matter. And this certainly fulfills the brief as far as capturing your interest. The radial lines coming from the circle to that center gear, and then the detail in the image is obvious. The exposure has been handled well, possibly a little bit too bright in the center on my screen. And again, easy to tone down by just dropping possibly the highlights, using a radial filter maybe on that center section, and even bringing up a little bit of the shadow on that center gear would enhance and maybe look for a merit.
Jane LaRue, 1-star selfie, Gold Award.
Well, I think that this is a great image, and it's especially a selfie. So a couple of comments I'd just like to make that will help Jane going forward is that the crop on the arm and on the hand is a bit of a no-no in the higher rankings and all. Yet the face is so strong, and the exposure and the focus on the face is so good that that is forgiven. To make this image a little bit better, what I suggest is that you maybe try and just tone down the forearm by just with a radial filter, or gradient filter, or with a brush in Lightroom, and just drop it down like a half a stop or so, that it doesn't start competing with the face. And once you've done that, then it actually brings the beautiful lighting on the face and makes it even stronger. Good image, well done.
Julie Eisenbeck, 2-star Gosling, Gold Award.
Nice one, Julie. What I like about this image is the softness of this Gosling and the softness of the water. You've given it such a moody feeling with the way you've processed it. Yes, I know that some people would say more tonal value, but I looked and you actually have got the darkest to the lightest. You've got it in the beak and the eye, you've got pitch black, and there in a bit on the wing you've got a touch of white. And it's a nice image, and I really like the way you're going, Julie. Keep this up.
Kathy K, Master Gold, Lone Rhino at the Waterhole, Gold Award.
There we go. Beautiful image, well captured. I enjoy the stance where you're almost looking up at the rhino, your position obviously from low down. Why not a merit? Again, if one wants to try and teach Kathy something, this is the opportunity that I'm going to get. I would look at just the feet and maybe lowering the exposure a little bit there that seems to attract attention more than the face, and maybe have the face slightly lighter, although the lightness or the exposure on it as it is very good. But I would certainly look at just lowering the exposure a little bit on the feet. But a great image.
Malcolm Sutton, 5-star, Ipupa Falls, Merit Award.
This was my image of the night. Go ahead, Henry.
Well done. This is, I think, mine too. There is so much in this image that is commendable. So if you look at the soft water with the waterfall, it's milky. If you look at the texture and the different tones of grey, and then the skyscape in the back, it just adds to the overall drama of this. But the rendition of this thing in monochrome is first class, and I think this image will do very well wherever it's presented. Well done, Malcolm.
Next category is Nature. 2-star, Chu, Silver.
Is this me? Okay, no, it's Kathy.
Kathy.
There we go. Sorry, the picture's only just arrived now. I'm afraid my connection's not good. But, lovely image. Love the fact that it's chewing away with a skew mouth, and there's no doubt about it. The attention is on that mouth. So a really, really great effort. I think basically the only thing that really lets this image down is that it appears, and I stand to be corrected, that it was taken at a really, really, really bright time of the day. It looks like kind of like midday, lunchtime or something. And because of that, you've got no detail in the eye. You've got quite a lot of brightness around, because it would have been lovely if the background had been a little bit darker, and which you get in the low hours of the morning. And at a higher star rating, as you progress, remember, try not to crop the ears. Try either coming really close on the face or include all of the ears. But as it is, I love the way, I love the fact that this author is now looking for expression and something different in the animals. Well done.
2-star, Little Red, Silver.
Yes, one of those images with a lot of potential. Always lovely to capture these small birds, and they're often in a very busy area with lots of trees and branches around it, and that is unfortunately to some degree what lets this image down. Had the background not been as busy, one would have had all the attention focused on the bird, and like Henry often says, crop with your feet. If it's possible to move and get an angle where you don't have the distractions, the branch coming out the top of the head, for example, and that other diagonal line right across the back, it would make the image a bit stronger.
Shantazette the winner, 2-star, Throw Punt, Gold Award.
Well done, Shantazette. So again, the exposure on this bird is absolutely beautiful. Look at the highlight in the eye, this pin shot from the tip of its beak all the way across its eyebrows and all that, and that's the important part. As Ian mentioned in the image before, the background is always an issue with this type of bird, because that's where they live, this is where they're comfortable. So if you can crop with your feet by moving around and all that, sometimes you will be able to get a better viewpoint. But if not, then in the higher star rating, then I would suggest that you maybe either start fiddling around and playing with different apertures, try your depth of field, if you can, you have the right lens to do that. But then you also in Lightroom, you can tone down that background and make it less obtrusive. A strong image like this always helps with that type of background. So well done, keep it up.
Ian Taylor, Master Bronze, Delicately Poised, Gold Award.
Yes, I love this image. I love the cleanness of the image. The background is absolutely beautiful. And that contrast of that flower that the butterfly is standing on, just nestling in the corner, it's really lovely. So the composition is great, the detail is great, it's lovely, sharp image, lovely. It's a good image to enter as a macro in the macro category in the next salon when it comes up, yeah.
Thank you.
Next category is Nature Wildlife. 1-star, Fungi, Silver.
Yes, I particularly like this image. I've done several walks in Orabi Gorge in low light conditions there under the shadows and what have you, and the mushrooms and the growths on the trees are always very interesting. It's always such a challenge to get the right angle and the right perspective to look at these little plants or fungi to get a good composition and a good image and good exposure. Despite that, this image is, for the star rating, it's very good. But the light from the side is a little bit harsh. And again, one can move around. These are things that are static. You could move around and position yourself in a better way. I don't mind the mushrooms that much in the background. They're not that intrusive, but the light on the side is a little bit too harsh. On the right-hand side of the center part of the image, the focus is very strong, and one can see the exposure there giving a good rendition of what that mushroom looks like. So well done.
3-star, alert, silver award.
All right. First of all, I must say I like the exposure on the animal, and I like a reflection in the water. However, I think that there's a lot that can be done to improve this image. I think the negative space to the right, or to the animal's left, is actually doesn't add any value. So you can certainly lose half of that, and then bring it almost like in a more square crop, and that will make it stronger. For me, the big letdown was that the water seems to be tilting to the right. And that, again, is very easy to fix in Lightroom or Faster, any of those, and you just tilt this image to the left and straighten it out. Because remember, water will always be level, irrespective of what's around it. So that just messes it up a bit for me. But I certainly would look at doing a slightly different crop, and losing that background on the right. That adds no value to the image.
3-star, hungry squirrel, silver.
Yes, so lovely to have captured this. Just love the fact that it's eating and it's almost got a smile on its face. However, at this level in 3-star, you have to get you have to be more in control of your focus. This image is not sharp, and it's unfortunate, because if it was much sharper, it would be a delightful image. Also, don't be scared of getting down low. Just crouch down on your knees or something, and try and take the image more at eye level rather than from above. You would get more of the expression, and you would probably find then that you could possibly get a sharper image.
3-star, stone chat, silver.
Yes, the potential for a very good and strong image. Unfortunately, again, a little bit soft, the exposure. I think possibly you've tried to zoom in too much, or maybe you've cropped too close. Sometimes cropping that much makes you lose detail. And I don't know if it's something that was done in post-processing. It looks like you've tried to lighten around the eye there, and I think you've maybe been a bit too generous with your exposure, and it's creating a little bit of a milky kind of tone to that eye, which is not natural, and that detracts slightly from the image. But well done otherwise. Nice clean background and well positioned. The positioning of the bird in that image is well done.
4-star, malachite, silver.
Yeah, I think it's a pity that this image didn't do better than that. I think that, well, let me get to the good part. The good part is just the coloration on this malachite is absolutely stunning. The background is totally unobtrusive, and it just lends itself to this type of image. So I think that the trunk on the left-hand side actually steals the show. So I would certainly look at cropping that out, go close to the edge of that tree, and then on the piece that the bird's sitting just below that part where it's broken off, come in there. So I would lose all of that area and just make it that malachite pop out and become the center of attraction as it should be.
5-star, blue wax pearl bathing, silver award.
Yes, I actually love this image. I just love the beautiful sparkle in this little wax bull's eye. I love the water droplets as it was obviously shaking itself, and you've got a ripple effect in the front. The only reason why this image, in my opinion, didn't get a gold was that it appears to be a little bit flat. Just a little bit of coloration, a little bit of contrast, maybe in Lightroom adding a little bit of texture, you could bring out so much color and so much detail in this wax bull. Just try what I've recommended, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. This has got such potential, this image.
5-star, Samango monkey, silver.
This is me.
Yes.
Sorry. Thanks, Akash. Yes, I really liked this image. When I looked at it at first, I was very taken with it. I really like the exposure around the eyes and the focus. And I also like the positioning. The crop is good. And one is really drawn into the kind of central point around the eyes and the face. However, the lighting at the back, to me, is a little bit distracting. It's always nice to see a backlit image, but to some extent on the bottom under the chin there, that round blob and then the lighting around the chin tends to pull your eyes away from the actual focus of the eye itself on that image, and that detracts slightly. So again, you must really not be scared to try experimenting with your controls, whether you're using Lightroom or whatever, Photoshop or whatever your image processing is. One obviously can't clone things out or remove things, but you can control your exposure. So your darkness, your lighter areas can be controlled. And it's worthwhile experimenting with those, because one can really produce a stunning image by lowering the bright areas slightly and picking up on shadows in some areas. But otherwise, a nice capture. Well done.
5-star, Springbok Parade, silver.
Yeah, I always look forward to seeing this type of image because we've seen so many different examples of herds congregated together and all that. So the panoramic format that's presented, I think, suits this image beautifully. I do think that the fact that the animals are actually moving away from you gives you more of a bum shot rather than a side-on where you get walking towards you, where you get more detail in the face and the eyes, and therefore you can connect with it. As is right here now, it's moving away, so you tend to lose the sort of impact that I think you would be looking for in something like that. And then the lighting conditions almost seems like a little bit flat. So I don't know if it's a processing error, but certainly I would look at just playing a little bit with highlights and shadows and see if I can bring out a little bit more detail.
5-star, tree squirrel, silver.
Yes, I love the fact that the author has captured this little tree squirrel in the light as it emerged and the light caught it. So that's great. That's what we're looking for. That's really good timing. Unfortunately, by getting the exposure correct on the little tree squirrel, you've now created a problem with the exposure in this tree trunk. And because it's got such texture and such detail, that's where the eye is going. And it is distracting and moving the eye away from this beautiful little tree squirrel. So you've got two options here. You either can use a radial filter and take it at an angle and drag it across that tree trunk, bring the highlights and everything right down so that you get some muted tones, and you would end up with the tree that's above the little squirrel, you could end up with it in that color, or you can crop. You can crop directly underneath that squirrel's little fingers there where the trunk is into a landscape type of crop. And you can just leave out all that trunk, and then you've just got that little tree squirrel with the face and the whiskers and everything else. So lovely image, but you've just got a problem with your post-processing. I just want to ask, can you all hear me? Because I moved on to my dongle because I was, okay, thank you.
Daryl Beneke, 4-star, Persistent Baby, Gold Award. Ian?
Sorry, yes, that's me. I'm looking at it and just enjoying the image. Yes, having just come back from Bonamanzi up on the north coast, we saw plenty Nyala females and males, and this is a lovely image with the young Nyala having a go at mom there, wanting some milk. Mom is obviously complaining a little bit because the babies, especially when they get a bit older, do tend to push and shove quite a bit. But a nice capture, tells a nice story. The crop is good. I would have preferred a little bit more space, maybe on the left and in the foreground, but that's nitpicking a bit. And otherwise, the exposure is very good. Well done. Nice image.
Fawn Behrens, Master Bronze, Shake My Catch, Gold Award.
Well, and I must compliment Fawn on this image. Certainly the exposure on the whites is absolutely perfect. You can see so much detail in it. And then having caught captured the moment with the water splashing around and the prey in its bill is really good. I just like the surround of the water around there. There's nothing to detract one's attention away from this, which is a bird and its prey. Well done.
Henry Opple, Master Silver, Cheetah Males with Kill, Merit Award.
Wow, that's nice. Isn't the Southwest Merit tonight? So well done. Okay, so you are going to ask why. Well, first of all, that intense look on that cheetah with those yellow eyes, and you're not seeing all the meat and the blood and the gore, but there's no doubt if you look at the blood on his face and the intention in that cheetah's eyes, what's going on. But what really adds value to this is the stripes of the prey, of the kill. And if you look, you see how they're from the bottom, they're leading from the corner and they're leading directly to the cheetah. So your eyes immediately traveling to that cheetah. And you can see it's quite a bushy area, but instead of it being distracting, it's been so well processed that it's adding value to your image and it's showing you in their natural habitat in the bush. Nice one.
Kash, before you move on, could I just make a comment as well? Obviously, in the processing, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. In the processing here, one has been able to see the results of. It looks like a vignette, so the outer edges are darkened. I don't know if I'm right there, Henry. But certainly, as Kathy says, when I looked at this image, I actually called my wife and said, "You've got to see this." To see the intense look on that cheetah's face, and despite the distractions that there might be around and about on it, your focus is drawn back again and again to those eyes. And that is very, very important to see. And by using your techniques in your post-processing correctly, you can create a wonderful image. Obviously, this is a good image to start with, but well done.
Thank you.
Henry Opple, Master Silver, Double Catch, Gold Award. Ian,
My turn. What can I say? Well done, Henry. Very nice. I love this image. To capture that image with two fish, that is very fortunate. Well done. And again, when you look at it, your focus and attention is on the bird, despite the fact that it's on quite a thick stump or tree branch there. It doesn't detract because it's nicely subdued. It's a nice golden color, but your eyes go back to focus on the bird, the beak, and those fish in it. A little bit of a dark spot in the bottom left corner. If I was nitpicking, I would say lighten that up slightly, but otherwise, well done, Henry.
Henry Opple, Master Silver, Morning Mum, Gold Award. Kathy?
Yes, well, the lovely thing about this image is the fact that you've got this incredible interaction and this connection between the lioness, and I assume it's her cub as well. And what makes this very, very strong, in my opinion, is with the early morning light, if you have a look at the lioness, the light has caught that lion going down her ear and towards the eye, and it's given you a catch light in the eye. Wow, and that is really, really good timing. So well done. Henry, if I can give you a little bit of advice, if you're entering this in a salon and you want to do even better, you've got a slight blue cast on the whites there. If you look at your highlights, and they might mark you down for that, so you can get rid of that in Lightroom. You can pull on that in your colors and pull back on the blue and just remove the blue and turn it into more of a white.
Thank you.
Ian Taylor, Master Bronze, Cave Vouchers on Landing Approach, Gold Award.
Use it me?
Yes.
Yes, to be now.
Okay. All right. Well, in I just like the way you captured this, and that you have these birds coming in with the light on them, and you have the cliff or the behind them in shadows, and that makes them pop out there. I do think that this image could possibly, there's a big sort of area on the left and the upper left, and I'm sort of really nitpicking on all that. My eye keeps on going towards that, and if you could maybe just tone that down a little bit, then it will make these birds really pop as they are right now. But to get them coming in like a squadron coming into land, absolutely well done. Well done.
Ian Taylor, Master Bronze, Pelicans in High Key, Merit Award.
Kathy?
Oh, I got to unmute. Sorry. I was saying I absolutely love this image. It was one of my favorite evening images of the evening. But I just love high key, and high key that has been so immensely well handled to me is really, really top class. So I'm not sure if you perhaps upped your exposure like a +2 or a +3 with great control, or whether you did it post production. But what is so fantastic about this image that you have lost no detail in these pelicans. It's all there. And then, of course, because the fact that your background has got very little detail except the reflections, but it's not blown out, it's not pure white, it's still got a bit of color in, just adds value. You just can't stop looking at this. Is the sort of image that one would sell. It would sell immensely, you know, being on canvas, big images or something. This is the kind of image that will go far. You can use this one.
Thank you.
Jacques Selshop, Master Silver, Crowned Eagle with Diker Prey, Gold Award.
It's got to be me.
Yes.
Well done, Jacques. So nice to see the crowned eagle with that Dacre head. Obviously on its way, bringing some food for the little youngster in the nest. And great capture, wonderful opportunity to see this nature in its process, etc. So the image, we had this earlier on in one of the images, this one not quite as much, but that tree trunk on the left, had you toned that down maybe a stop or so, it would make this image into a merit, in my opinion. Otherwise, well handled, well exposed, nice and sharp, great composition. Well done.
Agree with that.
Jacques Selshop, Master Silver, I Have Spoken, Merit Award.
Yep, I can comment on this one. Yeah. Jacques, this is absolute stunner, this image. This is my favorite image of the evening. Just look at the light on the boss here, and the texture, the detail on the skin. The eyes sharp, the ears are sharp, everything is right. And then this beautiful diffused background. It is really a very, very good image. Well done.
Kathy K, Master Gold, Black Crake, Stepping Out, Merit Award. Ian?
Right, so now to the rest of you folk that are looking at these images, we've been very fortunate to have some stunning wildlife images which our club is famous for. And again, what can we say about this image? Great exposure, great color, diffused background. Everything has been done with great thought, well captured, and the movement is there, and yet there's no blurring. It's nice and sharp, well focused, as I said, and the crop is good. If anything, for me, I like to see sometimes a little bit more space front and back on these birds, but nonetheless, great capture.
Master Bronze, Mud Feet, Silver.
I actually like the reflection. I like the story. I like the diagonal of the bird. I think it's a little bit softer around the face and all that, and that's the only reason why I didn't mark this higher. The square crop works because of the reflection. Normally I would I'm anti, I don't really like them. It's a personal thing, but in this case it works well. But I do think that the bird can stand a little bit of sharp and make it pop a bit more.
Malcolm Sutton, 5-star, Lily Trotter, Gold Award.
This is an absolutely stunning image. First of all, the exposure on this bird is incredible. If you look at the whites, they're not blown. There's detail in the feathers. There's a light in the eye. But what I particularly loved about this image is the fact that normally the lily trotters, you've got them on these big green lilies, and sometimes it almost like competes. But this fact that this lily and this whole area here is much darker and muddier and all that, it makes this image really, really stand out. And Malcolm, this is another one that you can definitely enter in a salon or consider using for your panel.
Michelle Pearson, 4-star, Cape Vulture, Gold Award.
Right, my turn. Interesting that I should get an image that I've captured several of the same myself. And I really like this image, Michelle. It's a great capture. Your exposure is good. Your crop is good. But I would prefer a little bit more contrast in it. I think you could be a little bit more daring and push your contrast between the slider up a bit, and you'll find that you'll get a little bit of a darker look on that wing. I think it's a little bit on the light side, but otherwise a great capture and well done.
Rona Shop, 5-star. Just a minute, gold award.
Really enjoy this image to see a cheetah with that pose looking at you. So there's direct contact with the photographer, and in its natural habitat, really it stands out. But what the cherry on the top for me is just that eye, that red eye that makes this animal alive and brings it right close to. Great exposure, well focused, and the composition is wonderful. Well done.
Rona Shop, 5-star. Licking my lips, gold award.
Oh, Rona, lucky you, just to have even seen this. Yes, lovely image. I love the although it's a busy background, exposure's been so well handled that it's muted, and you've got the brilliant colors on this leopard. You've got those beautiful eyes, you've got the tongue licking. It's just, and of course, what really makes it is this lead in with the tail, leading up to the face and everything else. And the exposure, you haven't blown the whites in the leopard. Well done, Rona. I really like this image.
Sue Gould, 5-star. Caracal at dusk, gold award.
Well, again, we've got a side lit animal, and this time the exposure's been handled very well. This fact that there is that kind of busy background doesn't detract from the image, because the focus is still staying on this caracal. And if anything, when I looked at it on my big screen when I was judging, it looked like there was a little bit of shadows that were increased on the eye. And you can't see it on the smaller screen, but one needs to be careful with manipulating and changing your colors and your lighting. But nonetheless, very, very well captured and well handled.
Tim Gould, 5-star. White crested helmet strike, gold award.
Well, Goulds are really producing some excellent images. So this bird, if you look at it from top to bottom, is just perfect. The rendition here, the greys, the blacks, whites, all detailed, and then this beautiful yellow eye staring at you. A nice perch, interesting perch, a little bit dangerous sitting on there. And then the clean background, it just helps this pop out and stand out. Well done. Great image. I like it.
Next category is pictorial. 5-star, old camera, silver.
Oh, fabulous. I just love it when our members get adventurous. And this is lovely. And I love the fact that you've got this almost muted image. It's quite almost difficult to work out what it is. And then those little added daisies at the bottom. I think the only thing that is just detracted from this image, and it hasn't earned a gold, is that I'm not sure if you used a flash or what lighting you use, but you've got quite bright highlights, and you've got some of the darks are so dark that you're losing detail in this camera. Would have been nice to see the shape, the whole shape of the camera, a little bit more shape. So maybe just bring up your shadows a little bit and down your highlights, a little bit more shape, and it'll be fantastic.
Andries Borman, Master Bronze, Red Feet, Gold Award.
Well captured, Andries. Another one of these birds that are elusive and difficult to get. And this one has certainly played into your hands very nicely, setting itself up on a nice perch, well captured with nice detail. Exposure's good. Why not a higher mark? Possibly with the light coming from the angle that it is, one could have maybe increased a little bit on the shadow slider, pull that up a bit to brighten a little bit more of the darker areas, but otherwise nice and sharp and good image.
Julie Eisenbeck, 2-star, On the Prowl, Gold Award.
Always lovely to see this type of image that you don't have to go far to get some great images. What I like particularly is the framing with the shrub around this, the cat, the kitten coming in. So why not high mark? One, I think it is a little bit softer around the face. I think just a little bit of sharpening in either Lightroom or Faststone will really make that stand out and bring more detail in the eye, and it will make it stronger.
Could I just comment on that image as well? Sorry, Akash. The two white flowers on the top, being as bright as they are a little bit distracting. And in fact, if one just cropped slightly and removed those, it would make that image much stronger. That branch and the shape of those sticks that it comes through does do a lovely frame. And I think that top bit is wasted to some extent.
I agree with Ian.
Yeah.
Karine Behrens, 5-star, Lily, Gold Award.
Yes, Karine, I love this image. I love your floral photography. It's really becoming your strong point. I hope you're entering these in salons. And what I particularly love about this is you have pushed the limits with the whites on this lily, but you haven't blown it. And it's just so impactful. It just draws the eye in. You've got beautiful detail in this lily. It's lovely. And I love the fact that you've got such good focus almost throughout as well on the lily itself. And then you haven't bothered too much about the stem because that's just your lead in. And that is very well thought out, very good composition.
Master Bronze, Faded, Silver Award.
Is this me?
Yes.
Right, thank you, Akash. Yeah, I looked at this image and I can see the idea, and I must be honest, I am not one of these creative people that are an artist as such. I've always been accused as a person that's not a birder. I'm a bird photographer. I don't know enough about birds and so on and so on. And when it comes to art, I also need a lot of learning and experience to come in terms of understanding how these things all work. And when I looked at this image, I was very interested with it at first. The exposure and the color and everything is good. But what I found distracting was it seemed obviously that there's been sections that have been repeated or cloned in. I don't know if I'm correct when I say that, but in doing so, there are pieces, particularly on the right-hand side below those other flowers, that there's that dark line there, which I think is probably unnecessary in the image. Apart from that, it's very strong, and it would have more appeal, in my opinion, if that was taken care of. And in this category, one can do what you like. So, you know, in doing what you've done, it's created a nice image. But for me, I just find it a little bit yeah, there are a few things that just detract from it in terms of how it's been handled.
Master Bronze, The Outing, Silver Award.
Well, nice action captured with the dog and the ball in its mouth. Nice coloration, nice exposure on the dog and his around. And I think it's a little bit soft around the face area, and that's where one would expect it to be sharper. Look at the tail sharper than the face almost. But great movement, nice capture.
Tim Gould, 5-star, Landing, Gold Award.
Yes, Tim, the actual angle of this batelier approaching to land is so good. I love the way the head's been framed, that it's just leading to the beak, and then you've got such great exposure on the wings. It's almost a pity that it's been entered in the open or the pictorial. I imagine you must have needed to remove something very distracting, because if you can get away with it and enter this in the nature wildlife, I think you could do very well with this image. But even as it stands, don't misunderstand me, it's still a great image. Well done.
Next category is portrait. 4-star, On the Lookout, Silver.
Right. Yeah, as a portrait, I would want to see a sharper and more focus around the eye and the beak area. It's a little bit soft. The angle that the picture's been taken at is also maybe you almost too far below to be on kind of a level, and perhaps if you'd gone backwards a bit, or if you were able to, and take a picture from a more horizontal sort of approach, it would have improved on the composition, especially in terms of the perspective. So as a portrait, interesting, but the crop, I find it also a little bit too close. The head is too close to the edge, the beak is too close to the edge on the left-hand side. But otherwise, a good attempt.
I can just jump in there and suggest that as it is right here now, that if the author loses half of the shoulder area and crop it tighter towards the lighter brown, that straight away it's a stronger image. It's just too much back dominates the image.
4-star, Proud Leader, Silver.
Yeah, but I like this the pose, yeah, and the alertness of the I don't know if it's a Nyala or a Kudu, but Nyala, I would imagine.
Nyala.
Yeah, is that right?
Nyala.
Yeah.
Inyala.
Yeah, and very alert, and in its full majesty. I just love the cloak, if you want to call it, and the hair in this animal. So I think that the lighting conditions weren't ideal, and that makes the image a little bit flat. So I might sound like a harp in this, but in cases like this, if I can't do anything with this image by either lifting the highlights and the shadows and pop a little bit more, then I would convert this into monochrome. Once you convert it into monochrome, then you can really play around with it, and you can up the contrast. And by doing that, you can bring more life to the image. And in this case, so the green surround that does compete with the animal, and now it doesn't compete, and it just becomes another tone of grey. And I suggest that you actually give us a try with this one.
Another thing there, Akash, if I can also just interject, what I noticed on this image, I felt it was a very strong image. I really liked the exposure, the color, everything was good. Sharpness was good. But I think the depth of field is too great. So if the aperture had been a smaller number, and a larger aperture, and the background was more out of focus, it would have, and the foreground as well, it would have improved on this image dramatically, because then the image would have popped out instead of having the grass, which, as Henry said, because it's green, it's quite distracting and it's all in focus.
Andres Borban, Master Bronze, Champ, Gold Award.
Yes, I love this image, Andres. I think it's just absolutely fabulous. I just love the exposure. It's a beautiful pose. It's a beautiful portrait. You see these images all over, especially overseas, everywhere else. This is a kind of image that people buy to put on their walls and in their offices and whatever. So well done. I can only think it didn't get a merit because there's just not quite enough detail in the eye. And oh, Bori, that is so easy. You can just go there and just work on the highlights in that eye there and bring out that catch light, and it will just, the eye will just pop.
Julie Eisenbeck, 2-star, The Face of Beauty, Gold Award.
Right, here was a lovely image, well captured. Yes, the background is busy, but it's not distracting because it's out of focus. Even though the green is very green, it tends to enhance the kind of beauty that is to be seen, especially around that eye area. Everything is in such sharp focus there. Very nice capture. One could pull down if one went into your saturation slider in Lightroom. I don't know if you have that functionality in the way you process your image, but if you pull down on that green, you could actually soften that a bit, which would make the image pop even more. But otherwise, it's very well done.
Laura Oppo, 4-star, Mesmerized, Gold Award.
Kathy?
Yes, I really like this image. Yes, I realize that the face is in shadow and the sun is from behind, but there is such an intensity and such a beautiful expression on this little character's face that you forget about it, and just love the eyes. And it's just such a pity on the shoulder that it's so bright on the little child's right shoulder. It's to our left, and on the top left of the forehead. You could, Laura, you could really just tone that down, tone down the shoulder, tone down that bright spot. And seeing that it is in portrait, you know, you've got the car, your vehicle, in the little child's eyes. You could get rid of that too and just make it black, unless you particularly want it. Maybe that's, you know, that's the look that you were going for. But I would definitely get rid of those two bright spots and on the ear, if you're thinking of entering it in the salon, and you'll probably do quite well.
I must say I enjoyed seeing the two cars in the eye. I thought that's maybe what was frightening her or making her mesmerized.
Fords do that to people.
Yeah, there you go.
Michelle Pearson, 4-star, Lioness Portrait, Gold Award.
I'll take this one. Seeing Kathy helped me out there. Beautiful image of the lioness. You don't see many portraits. I haven't seen many portraits of lions where I just cannot stop looking at this image. So it is nice and soft, yet it's sharp. The muted background and the coloration of the linings, that beautiful harmony. It really just works well in all that. But it's the look in her face. It's like contentment, or I don't know. But there's so much that you can read into this. Well captured, well processed, well done.
Michelle Pearson, 4-star, Little Egret, Gold Award.
Do you want me to go in?
Yeah.
I love this this image yet again. What I found so intriguing about this image is these feathers that are leading up in these beautiful lines that's going from the right corner towards the egret. It just adds such value. And then, of course, Michelle has handled her whites so very, very strongly. Beautiful angle, beautiful background. Michelle, I would really have liked, I feel that if you'd gone more landscape and just added a bit in front of this egret, in front of the beak. I know you've entered in the portrait, but it's still, it just worried me a bit. It made it look as if it was pulling its head in because it was hitting against the border. So give it a little bit of space, recrop it and put some space in front, and this one will do well.
I agree with that.
Next category is scapes. 3-star, vertical geology, silver.
Right. This is an image that one would love to see in the early morning or late afternoon. And I think what has, to some extent, one can see shadows there. But it's one of those, one almost wonders if it was taken through the window as you were driving past, because that band of grass on the foreground, it's not quite level, and it's also quite distracting because it's out of focus. The rest of the image is also slightly lacking in focus, and it has such potential to be such a strong image. I've seen this kind of thing on the highway on the way up to Johannesburg, and often wondered if one could get off-road somewhere and take a photo of this at the right time of day. That would be really stunning. But a good effort nonetheless. But yeah, the comments are, as I've said, a little bit soft and so on.
5-star, soft morning light, silver.
Yeah. They also really managed to capture the movement on the wave hitting the rocks there nicely, and that's where I think you could probably have done a little bit more. So, as far as the background to landscapes, you want to have a foreground, a midground, and a background. So there's a little bit of foreground there with that rock on its own, then the middle ground, which is the big rock with a splash on it, and then the background is the sky. So I think if you pull out a little bit more contrast here and a little bit of saturation, you can actually liven up that sky, and then you have a nice complete image. Whether the rock on the left-hand side adds value to it, I don't think so. If it was the complete rock included and some space behind it, then it would be a nice lead-in. But the rock being cropped like it actually does spoil it. So I'd rather just remove it completely.
If I could just comment on this sorry, Akash, on my screen, especially when I looked at it on my calibrated monitor, it looked a little bit like there's a purple tinge. And I know one of the things that we covered in the judging course that I did, and it was a subsequent set of emails that came back, was to be very careful about color contrast and hue and tinging, whether it be on the green side or on the purple side, because they do tend to alter the actual real color, and it can end up being a little bit off-putting in terms of the value of the image.
So how would you improve it?
Well, there are sliders. If you were to look at your actual white balance, you have a slider underneath on Lightroom that allows you to go green or purple, and one can pull back slightly on the purple there, or else one can go into the color saturation and hue sliders and pull back on the purple in there, and you would certainly, I think, in my opinion, get a slightly better color rendition for that scene.
Just pull back on the magenta and the white balance, and that'll change it straight away.
Van Berens, Master Bronze, Sunrise at Whale Deck Beach, Gold Award.
Well, Fawn, you're becoming really, really such a master at the escapes. There's a softness about this which is just makes this, would draw people from Mpumalanga and elsewhere to come to our coast because of the atmosphere that you have created. This is what everybody imagines, sitting, looking at this with a G&T in their hand or a lovely steaming cup of coffee if it's early in the morning. And yet your rocks and that are pin sharp. So you haven't softened the whole image. You've created a soft mood with your colors, with the time. I think it could be, I stand to be corrected, but looking at the softness of the water, 10, 15 seconds, and the clouds that have muted, it's a well composed image, this. Well done.
Karine Berens, 5-star, Ochunson, Gold Award.
I really enjoyed this image. You have a very nice lead-in from the right-hand side. That rock kind of anchors your gaze initially, and then you follow the line on the shore, and you go down to the end, and you're drawn into the lighter parts with the red in the distance and the orange in the sky. And it's just a peaceful and tranquil image. It's the kind of thing one would just love to go and be walking along there with your dog or with your wife or your girlfriend or whoever your favorite person is, and just enjoying that vista.
Master Bronze, Dune and Cloud Display, Bronze Award.
It's such a pity with this image because it has everything in it to make a great, stunning image. You have these beautiful lines in the dunes and the color in the dunes, and then the skyscape to complement it all. So why such a low mark? I think it's the processing issue. If you look at the lines on the dunes and all that, it seems like it's been over-processed and sharpened. If you look at the foreground here, where you would expect to see the sand and the lines in the sand, you expect that to be sharp. Those are sort of almost gone all hazy. So I don't know if it's just a very big crop or if you could rescue this, but certainly I think it was a processing error, and it's such a pity because it has everything to make a great image.
Do you mind if I just interject here? I noticed on my screen, on the top of that light, the sand dune that looks like a pyramid on the left-hand side, there was huge color aberrations there that occurred in the post-processing. There were like purple and green splotches and all that sort of thing. So this is a tremendous image. I really feel the authors should go back to the raw image and start again and try and process it again, because this is, everything is here, just in the post-processing you brought out too much noise, color noise in particular.
Mm.
Next category is Sport. 4-star, Zipline Fun, Silver.
Is this
Right.
me? Oh, it's Ian, sorry.
No problem. I really enjoyed this image. I thought that little boy that's sitting there is probably so excited to be up there. Obviously the guide, or whatever you would call him, seems very relaxed and very confident in his pose, and yet that little boy is just so excited that he's flying along on the zip line and really enjoying himself. So great image, great capture. How to improve on it? Well, again, we will talk about the difference between the background. It's very light, it's very bright. If that was diffused slightly, it could help. And then also, although the people don't distract too much, because they're not really that intrusive, and it does show you kind of that there are people around, but I think they don't add value to the image. So if one could have moved slightly to your left and taken the image with them out of it, I think it would have been a stronger image.
So this is more suited to an open category rather than sport.
Yeah, that was my feelings. It's not really a sport image, it's more open.
Right. Good
Shark
point.
Cell Shop, Master Silver, the Slide Gold Award.
Yes, this is definitely now a sport. As you can see, you get all types of water sport, and in particular, this is such a lovely image because it's so strong, the composition, not only with the line of the wake coming that he's created, but with his oar, whatever it is that he's holding, the angle of the body, and the ski coming in, and then it's all anchored by this reflection below him. So it's obviously taken in a fantastic time of the day. The sea and all that has been very, very well handled as well. Very nice image.
Next category is a set subject.
All right, guys, we've got 10 minutes to get through these before the lights go out for some people.
1 star, Wheatfield, Silver.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sky is very, very appealing. But I think somehow with that green on the bottom, the wheat field, if it is a wheat field, and that's the title of the subject, one would expect to see more of the wheat field. But in spite of that, I don't know. I think a crop would have maybe improved if one had been able to have a wider view of it, more of a panorama, and see more of the sky and more of that. It might have improved, but also the green is a bit dark. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's one of those that you kind of look at and think, wow, it must have been beautiful to see. But what the capture has done, or the crop, or the way the actual image has been captured, it hasn't really sort of lent itself to giving that wow factor.
Three star, Being a Kid, Silver.
Well, I can see what the author tried to get here in terms of the set subject. We wanted movement and all that, and I think they succeeded to a certain extent. However, again, always be mindful of the background and sort of place yourself in such a position that nothing will compete with what you're trying to portray. That's not so much of a problem. I think the real problem here is the amputation of the feet at the bottom, and that really is something that you should be aware of at all times, to include all of the body parts, or certainly crop it in such a way that it doesn't look amputated. But the exposure on the model is great. I like the side lighting. It brings out character, and there is movement there, but the background and the crop, it does spoil it a bit.
3 star, Fire Dance, Silver.
Yes, well, this author has definitely met the brief of a long exposure. What we look into, we're looking for something to show you that the author has deliberately extended the length of time that your shutter will be open and capturing some sort of motion. Regrettably, the author here didn't get the exposure time correctly. And it's these whites here that are totally blown out. We'll see further on where we've got more of these with the fire, where you don't have these blown out whites because the exposure time has been well done. So just beware of it. This is creative. We love to see you taking these kind of photographs, but you have to beware of this being blown out. You can either work on it in post-production and get rid of all these blown out highlights, or when you actually take the image, just take at different time intervals until you get it right.
4 star, Blue Hour Bathing, Silver.
Yes, when I initially looked at this image as well, I felt quite drawn into it, and quite an interesting spot. Looks like a caravan park or something, camp spot on the beach. And then when I started to look at it more closely, I noticed a few things that were a little bit alarming. And that foreground on the sand on the right-hand side, there's a lot of color fringing there, like a purple magenta combination that has come in. And I don't know why that is so, and maybe it's post-processing. If this was to do, well, for the set subject to show motion, there is certainly motion in the movement of that wave, but the rock and the outcrop at the back with that pool doesn't look very sharp. So that also distracts slightly from this image.
5-star. Don't start a fire you can't quench. Silver.
Well, certainly it's an image with a lot of impact, and there's movement with the water being sprayed. However, I think that it's just, I would have expected to see the three firemen more into the picture rather than being right on the edge. In fact, almost like cropped the third person or the one closest to the edge. So I think just if you have more images like this, try and bring in more into the picture rather than on the outskirts of the picture, and that would make it a far stronger image.
5-star. Forest tops. Silver. Kathy, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I really like what the author has done here, playing around and trying to change the zoom and all that sort of thing. And it is quite effective, but it would have been far more effective if you can take it with quite a long time, say 2 or 3 seconds. You first focus for a while on your subject, wherever it is, say the top of the trees or something, and then you zoom so that you've got just something in focus that's leading from there. Because now basically it's almost like just lines going, and it could be far more effective if you really play around with that zoom and make sure you zoom at the correct time.
5-star. Icing sugar storm. Silver.
Right. It's one of those food images that I must say I found quite appealing when I looked at it. Very interesting and nice positioning of that cake, that little cupcake on the plate. I think the crop, and Henry mentioned this earlier, it would have been better if the whole plate was visible, because that kind of just seems like the image has been cut off slightly. And then I like the idea of that drizzle of sugar coming down, but the image overall seems to be a little bit flat. The red of that little fruit or whatever it is on there is quite interesting, but the brown part and the gray seem to be a little bit flat, and I'm not sure why, but I'm sure if you were to experiment a bit with your color and your sliders in your post-processing, you might be able to improve on that.
5-star. Rocks in sea. Silver.
Well, I think exposure-wise, the author's done very well. If you look at the color on the rocks and all that, and that's really nice time of the day that it was taken. However, it's an image that doesn't really make you place it or try and I'm going to see a little bit more into it. So to me, it's just there's a lot of soft, fluffy water there, but nothing to hold your eye. I'm looking for something else other than just the smoky water with a very slow shutter speed. I don't know if it's just a very tight crop or deliberately cropped that way, but to me, it doesn't quite work.
Five-star, South Broome Beach, silver.
Yes, I love the idea of this image and the fact that you've got this beautiful sky. You've created sort of like a framing on either side, and you've allowed a lead in, and obviously you've got a long exposure going, but your post-processing has definitely let you down, because you've got this foreground here, this beach, which is so light. It is far too light in contrast with your sky, because in general, if you go out in the morning or the afternoon and you have a look, your sky in general is lighter than your beach or your land. So bear that in mind when you post-process, and this you could sort out easy peasy. You just use your gradient filter and you pull up from the bottom until you get to your horizon or just before your horizon. Pull back your highlights, add a bit of texture, contrast, a bit of color, even put your exposure down a bit. You'll darken this a bit and you'll have lovely balance in your image.
Henry Opple, Master Silver, Misty Swirls, Gold Award.
Yeah, I particularly liked the fact that the sun was on the horizon there, and it is quite muted, and it's the first thing that attracts your eye when you look at this image. But then when you start to explore and you look at the rocks and the movement of the water around them, you really see a lot of detail and texture, and the exposure is very well handled and very typical of your early morning kind of view that you would get at the beach, but with a lot of detail, well composed, nice composition, as I said, and the way it's been cropped and handled is very good. Thank you. Nice image.
Ian Taylor, Master Bronze, like spilt milk, Gold Award.
Well, now it's my time to compliment Ian on this one. One of the things that you're faced with when you do these escapes early in the morning or late afternoon is always this sort of decision. What do you include? Where do you place your emphasis on the foreground or the sky? So if the sky has got lots of interest in the clouds, then that's obviously the bulk of the image would be that. In this case, there's interest in the sky, but not as much interest there is in the foreground. And that way you've actually processed and handled this beautifully. So if you just look at the exposure again on the rocks with the soft milky water, drawing out the tide and all that, it is perfect. So a reverse of what normally expect, a fancy sky. In this case here, a nice fancy foreground leading up to an interesting sky. Well done.
Jane LaRue, 1 star, Lonely Tree, Gold Award.
Yes, I really like this image, Jane. It's one of those evocative, tranquil images, and just that simple tree, lovely foreground, and of course a beautiful sky. What I like is with the lines in the sky, it really, really gives the impression that you've used a long exposure, and it looks as if the formation of the clouds have come towards you. Whether or not that actually is the case doesn't matter. You definitely have that impression. And so it's a well-deserved gold. Well done.
Joan Darcy, 3 star, Strelitzia Slow Zoom, Gold Award.
Again, one of those images that I find difficult to comment on because of my lack of artistic kind of perception, but I found this very interesting and very appealing. And it's one of those images that you kind of would like to take yourself sometime. Might not necessarily know exactly how it was achieved, but well done. Nice composition. If anything, a little bit of a light kind of spot coming in on the left-hand side of the image, which one could tone down, but otherwise very appealing, very nice. Well done.
Kathy K, Master Gold, Soft Morning Color, Gold Award.
Well, I can, just to get back on my earlier comment about where you place the emphasis. So in this case, again, the foreground, middle ground, and then this wonderful sky in the background. But in particular, if you look at the water trails leading from the bottom left-hand corner, leading to the two little rocks sticking out, and then to the main block of rocks, it all just helps you lead your eye right to the sky in the background. Great image. I love the tones and colors. Well done, Kathy.
Kathy K, Master Gold, the sea, the beautiful sea, Gold Award.
Yes, I enjoyed this image when I saw it, and I must say, well handled, definitely fulfills the brief of the slow shutter speed, and all those diagonal lines coming across are just something that is appealing, and yeah, a nice composition, a nice crop, and as I say, exposure well handled. Good image. Thank you. Nice.
Laura Opel, 4-star, Forest Stream, Gold Award.
Shall I do it, Henry?
Yes, please.
Lovely image, Laura. This is definitely a long exposure. The way you've caused this beautiful milkiness in the water, that's kind of like what we were hoping for in this category. And of course, you've got the most incredible detail of the rocks, colors and detail of the rocks in front. So that's really, really well done. So you've obviously set your focal point very well. To bring it from a gold to a merit, I would just work on that top part there where the waterfall is and those very, very lime green leaves. You could tone that down a bit. I would take a radial filter. I would just put it on that and I would bring down the highlights, make it a slightly richer color, and you'll just lift this image.
Master Bronze, Elvis Blue, Silver.
I know.
Well,
Waar's my klank nou?
Mika,
Yes, you.
Daar's joune nou op, nou kan ons nie hoor wat is dit nie.
yeah. Right. Well, I like this type of image. The person has given it lots of thought, stacking, and then also it feels almost like a composite or a double exposure. I must be honest, I gave it a higher mark. I thought it was worthy of the gold, really, because
Ja, silver.
yeah, I thought it was worthy of the gold. So I'm just saying there that I liked it, and the reason why I liked it is that it was clean. I liked the colors of the discs of the CDC, and well presented.
Master Bronze, the Rhythm, Silver.
Yes. Kathy.
Yes, there's long exposure here. You can see that by the movement of the strumming hand, that becomes a blur, and the movement of the fingers. I like the idea of what the author has tried to produce here, but I do, however, feel that the exposure was just slightly too long on that hand that's strumming, because basically if you've played the guitar and you know the guitar, you realize that's a hand strumming, but if you don't, it's quite difficult to make that out. And I think a slower time where you had more of the hand, maybe with a rectum and the finger or something like that, I think it would have added much more value to this image.
Master Bronze, tranquil beach scene, silver.
One of those that is difficult to judge and comment on, in the sense that it has a lot of appeal and certainly fulfills the brief of the set subject with the long shutter exposure. So the detail in the rock in the foreground is all very prominent and very strong. And to some extent, I think that draws away from the kind of brief of this category. And if one were to look at the left-hand lower corner and across to where the large rock intrudes into that image, if one were to focus on that section only, it would be a very strong image. And so possibly a step to the left and getting the three sets of rock from the left going into the right-hand side of the image would have created a stronger composition and possibly a better result.
Master Silver, slow shutter spray, silver.
Well, certainly the slow shutter speed on the wave does it. It meets the brief and all that, but then what it does is that the rest of the image is a little bit soft. So, and that spoils it. If the surfer and the rocks had been sharper, with that spur, with the wave breaking there, then I think this would have been an absolute stunning image. So without the surfer there, the image probably could have worked, and that it was a slow shutter speed, lots of movement and all that. But the fact that you have that figure standing there, it's in a strong position, one's eye keeps on going back to that, and it's a bit lacking as far as sharpness is concerned.
Michelle Pearson, 4-star, Dominoes, Gold Award.
Yes, I like this. This is a fun image. You've thought about it, Michelle. I like the way you've positioned the dominoes so that they would fall in this curve. And I love the fact that it's just the timing. It just, I don't know if it was the way you placed them, but the timing works really, really well. I don't know if you took about 50 to get it just like this, but it's just lovely the way they go from standing up to lying absolutely flat, and the exposure is spot on as well. Well done, Michelle.
Rona Shop, 5-star, In the Mood, Gold Award.
I really enjoyed this image when I saw it, and I initially looked into the distance and saw game, and then I thought, very interesting. We've got this static picture of these two people on the right-hand side, almost look like they trying to do a dance of some sort, and then you see the two folk that are walking down, and it almost looks like the one's doing a jig with the leg lifted up to the right-hand side like that. But overall, it just works nicely, and it draws you in, and yeah, nice image. Well done.
Salon material for street photography.
Sue Gould, 5-star, Painting with Light, Gold Award.
Well, the contrast in colors really work very well, and there's nice shape and form to it, and that's what makes the image strong. I like the fact that there's no border around it, because that makes it a far bigger image than the actual format would allow you. So well done, Sue. Sorry.
Sue Gould, 5-star, Spinning, Gold Award.
Yes, these sort of images were quite popular at one stage, and it seems to have died down. And when I look at this image, I can see why it was so popular, and I sort of wish I could do a few of them myself, because this is really an interesting image, and I just absolutely love the many lines and the exposure on this image, because so you've done so well with the exposure. Even that ring in the center is not blown out. It's like that light that's coming from, you see the rock on the right hand side, and there's a light to the left of that rock. If I were you, I would just tone that light down a bit. Very easy to do in Lightroom. You can even just brush it out. Just tone that light down a bit, and this image will be fantastic.
That's the last one.
Yeah, well done, everyone.
Great.
Thanks, Akash. Thanks, judges.
Jacques, are you still around? Did you manage?
No, I think he's gone.
Anyway, I'm sure you'll get the recording, but I thought we did very well. It's just 8:15, so well done, everybody. Thank you for attending, and well done to the judges. Some really great comments tonight, and well done on our members. Wow, we saw some beautiful images. Very proud of you.
Well done, Akash.
And to you, Akash, thank you.
Well done.
No problem.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Good night.
Okay. Okay, good night.
Everybody.
Brian, don't forget to enter next month.